Industrial policy is not just subsidy. It's not about just throwing money at the problem. That's not what the industrial policy in China have done. One usually characterizes a country like China without a Western-style democracy as more prone to having a grabbing hand. Instead, the local government officials had a helping hand. The local governments often bend over heads over heels for the promising companies. You look at EVs, China became the largest producing EV country and EV patent producing country within 10 years. What China's inherent advantage is, I do think that the state plays a critical role when it comes to new strategic emerging sectors, new sectors which needs a boost, a jumpstart. Who's going to do that? If you wait for the private market to do that, either it'll be too slow or it will not be enough. Private investment will not be enough, and where there are market failures. China's success lies in the mobilization aspect of the state, the coordination, combination of the mayor economy with industrial policy and the private entrepreneurialism have created these new emerging strategic industries that no one else in the world was able to do within a short spate of time. Most people think that China is an extremely centralized system, as if all decisions are made from the top down, and that's a misconception. The more accurate way to describe it is political centralization coupled with economic decentralization, where the majority of economic policies, economic decision makings, making economic outcomes are implemented at the very local level. I want to give you an example. Which really highlights the power of the mayor economy and its uniqueness. Well, first of all, why are mayors or party secretaries or provincial governors and local government officials so motivated to do the right thing for the economy, right? You think that one usually characterizes a country like China without a Western-style democracy as more prone to having a grabbing hand. Instead, the local government officials had a helping hand. I'm actually sitting in China right now and I'm looking at these companies and how much the local government is coming out to help coordinate between lenders and debtors, between banking system, the companies setting up shop to attract talent, helping them, they're a one-stop shop to these companies. Why do they have this incentive to offer a lending hand, a helping hand, rather than grabbing hand, as most people think? Well, for a few reasons. One most important reason is that if they do a good job with the local economy, they get promoted. Of course, they have other personal gains, glory, sense of accomplishment, envy from other neighboring competing governors or party secretaries and so forth. But they are motivated by and large to do the right thing. And so that's what people don't understand about China, as if the state is always opposing the private. In fact, no, it's the state enabling the private. Yes, certainly there are aspects in which the state crowds out the private sector and the state monopolizes in certain things. But by and large, China's rapid economic growth depended greatly on this mayor economy, on this decentralization where the local governments play a big role. Why? Because they need the local governments. Not everything is mature in this Chinese system. Not always, the rules, the permits, everything, the business environment requires a certain amount of government intervention. But I want to give you an example that I think very strongly illustrates the mayor economy in addition to the power of industrial policy when it is implemented right. And that is the case of either solar panels or EVs, or many, many other examples, including robotics. So in 2005, if you look at a map of China, if you look at where in the country there were solar patents or productions, it's a desert. It's a desert in 2005. And of course, from 2005, the Chinese government decided to implement industrial policy supporting solar panels, but at the local level, at the city level. Maybe first 4 cities, maybe then 10, rolling out to 20, and then eventually 40, some cities over time, over a stretched period of time, implemented these industrial policies. And then 10 years later, 2015, you look at a map of China and look at solar panel production or solar panel innovation or patents, you see it has blossomed all over China, with the exception of the western central provinces, but really spread over China. And most of these cities had industrial policy implemented at some point. I think these are really incontrovertible examples where this could be very powerful. Now, that said, the mayor economy has its dark sides as well, right? Everything has a cost and a benefit, and one has to decide what the overall outcome is. If you look at the debt levels now at the local government level, the misallocation of resources, the huge capacity of solar panels, that has a lot to do with the mayor economy because the incentives is not at demand on the demand side, consuming, it's on the supply side. The best companies that can become global is the mayor economy's ultimate objective. But I want to clarify that industrial policy is not just subsidy. It is much broader than that. And this is where countries get it wrong, as if it's just as if you can subsidize a country and a sector to success. It's not the case. It's not about just throwing money at the problem. The local government created many, first of all, a good business environment, but coordinated supply chains. They jump-started a new ecosystem, right? If the government says, look, let's procure this new technology, let's start with SOEs, the state-owned enterprises, they will do that. They'll create that demand. Lots of these local government just make sure that this industry is going to at least have a good environment with the right players involved. A lot of it is mobilization, coordination, and allocation. It's not really just the hard financial policy. It's a lot of the soft policies that matter. And ultimately, whether industrial policies can be successful or not depends on whether they ultimately lead to more competition. In China, all of these industries, EV, solar panels, or what have you, are experiencing the most ferocious competition within China. It has not created a few winners with huge monopoly powers. That's not what the industrial policy in China have done. They have created ultimately more market competition. And then you withdraw these policies and let the market determine who is the winner. There's a lot of misunderstanding about China, but yes, competition in the Chinese political system is a very important restriction, constriction, checks and balance mechanism. The competition at the local level among provinces, even among, regions or cities, create inherent checks and balance on the system. If you think about it this way, if you're a promising company and you go to set up shop in a city, and either that city or that provincial government is not friendly, let's say, or is corrupt or extractive, as many famous economists claim China to be an extractive country, then what do? They simply flock away to the neighboring province or city and contribute to their GDP and their investment and their employment. Ultimately, the local government cares about these three things: GDP and employment, and how much you can contribute to the overall economy. So that would be killing the goose that lays the golden eggs. Now, if you have nowhere to flock because there's no competition, then that becomes a problem. So the local governments often bend over heads over heels for the promising companies. We mentioned about NEO and some other EV companies. There was huge competition among the local governments who can bid for NEO. In fact, I am just talking to a startup, not even a startup, an idea that has been very promising. The Beijing government said, look, whatever the Shanghainese government will offer you, we're going to match and we're going to actually increase that. This is not even on something that has already succeeded. What does it mean that local government create this competition creates this constraint of local government behavior? And again, another misunderstanding is that these government officials it's not the case that they have no checks and balances and no monitoring going on. In fact, monitoring surveillance is everywhere. It's even coming from the civil society itself. There's actually a dynamic debate on social media on these things. There are lots of criticisms about local governments. In fact, a Kennedy School study have shown that maybe a third or even more of lots of these social media posts is about monitoring local government officials, right? So there's a lot of actually, I would argue that there's too much monitoring and surveillance going on and not enough on focusing on creating more wealth today. China has thousands of years of history. Actually, China created one of the first modern bureaucracies. There are vestiges of the tradition and the historical elements in the Chinese system. including, the horizontal and the vertical stretches and expansions to every stratum society and every place around the country, and including the relationship, very, very a nuanced relationship between the central and local governments, the emperor, and how it can implement some of his policies at the local level. How can he monitor what's going on in this vast nation? That kind of central-local tussle has been a millennial condition that is still very much a part of the feature of the Chinese economy today. And even if you look at the very topical aspects in the Chinese economy, like the local government debt, how to resolve the local government debt, again, it comes back to this very nuanced central-local relationship. How much responsibility, how much resources to give the local government, how much monitoring, are they concerned about moral hazard where the central government bails out the local government? Other local governments will be very unhappy if they behave responsibly because you bailed out the less responsible ones. These are such important features in the thinking that they actually shape the most important economic outcomes of the Chinese situation today. So we have to understand these kind of dynamics to appreciate what is happening in China today. But speaking about history, bureaucracy, these inherited traits of the system, yes, they're very strong, and including its relationship with people, the relations between authority and the Chinese people. The West thinks that it's just the Chinese government and people's relationship today that is sometimes tense because of the supposedly authoritarian nature of certain things, but actually the relationship with authority, that quiet deference, but not blind submission to authority, is not only a permanent feature throughout history, but also a pervasive feature throughout society, whether it's between teacher and student or children and parents. That kind of relationship of authority is something that is very different in China from where it is in the West. And I think that people should just have a much more open-minded view about different perspectives.
偷偷告诉大家，我最近发现了新法宝 Royal Face 逆时奇迹系列，它有活肤露、全效精华，还有精华霜。尤其我皮肤比较偏干，所以我非常的注重保湿。保湿做得好，肌肤自然烹润。提亮肤色更年轻，抚平皱纹超有感，而且气色变好。用心保养，每天都更美一点。美吧。